Come at it from any angle you want. Talk, if you want, about the client journalists that facilitate this every single day. Talk about the parliamentary colleagues, the ministers, the cabinet members who facilitate this every single day. Talk about your friends, your family who fall for this still. Or talk about yourself. Talk about what you think has happened. What has happened to our country? How did this happen? I normally deploy a device at this point and suggest that I'm waking up from a coma after 5 years. It wouldn't need even to be 5 years, would it? I mean, Amber Rudd resigned under the last Prime Minister, under Theresa May. Even then, there were standards in place. Even post-Brexit, even after Brexit broke the most fundamental rules of reality by allowing people who denied it to triumph at the ballot box, there were still standards in place. There was still a semblance of decency. There was still justice. If, for example, you were found to have conducted a secret meeting with a foreign government without telling your own Prime Minister, then you would be fired from your ministerial role, as happened to Priti Patel. Of course, in Boris Johnson's government, getting fired for blatant dishonesty and borderline treason, if you want to be technical about it, becomes a qualification for promotion in Boris Johnson's Brexit Britain. And I'm doing all this off the top of my head. You'll have things in your mind that I have forgotten. Because when you are drowning in a sea of lies and corruption, you stop noticing. Every time the level rises a little higher, you stop noticing every individual piece of evidence. It just all becomes so encompassing and so complete that you can barely begin to emerge from it. You know, the Times carries a story today that Johnson tried to get her to drop the report. The Times, Rupert Murdoch's Times, reports that Boris Johnson tried to persuade Sue Gray not to publish her report on the grounds that it was all done and dusted now and the Met had made their decisions and what point would be served by it anyway. And yet his cheerleaders will still try to argue today that it doesn't really matter, or that there's no big surprises, or that you shouldn't care. If you shouldn't care about it, why did your hero try to get her not to publish it? Yesterday, the best-selling newspaper in the country carried a story containing a lie that had been dictated to them by Downing Street. The lie being that Sue Gray had instigated the meeting that I just told you about. Later in the day, they had to admit that wasn't true because, whether by accident or design, another minister, the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, these titles used to mean something. They used to have heft. They used to have honour. You might not like it. You might not like the system. You might not like the establishment. But if you've ever liked your country, you have to recognise that the great offices of state are part of the glue that binds together our democracy. And every single one of them has now been redeployed as an apologist for a corrupt Prime Minister. The Chancellor of the Exchequer debases himself by his association with Boris Johnson. The Chief Secretary of the Treasury let the cat out of the bag by accident yesterday because he was compelled to defend a Prime Minister who had already lied to the best-selling newspaper in the country. And so when he stated that the meeting had been called by Sue Gray, Downing Street had to retrench, had to reverse ferret, because otherwise she would have gone public with the truth. The Foreign Secretary, the Home Secretary, all of these officers of state that were never truly independent because of collective cabinet responsibility, but would at least have had individual integrity, have been corrupted by the contagion of Boris Johnson's depravity. It's incredible. And it happens throughout history without people noticing. How do you think you end up with an armed insurrection on the steps of the Capitol in Washington, D.C., at the behest and instigation of a defeated president who continues to claim that he won, while journalists and politicians queue up to endorse his blatant, proven, known lie? They do it for self-interest. And I resist passionately the conclusion that Johnson is no better than Trump, because that means that we are no better than them. But why else would anybody go along with the latest lies, except self-interest, delusion, and vanity? There were parties. He attended loads of them, and now you've got the bloody pictures. What more do you need?